I don't normally do rumour videos about photography, about possible new cameras coming out, or in this case, new lenses. But this latest rumour from Sony Alpha Rumours and SonyAlphaRumours.com, I'll link the article in the description. This one actually intrigues me. What they are talking about, of course, is a new Tamron lens for Sony full frame E-mount. A new Tamron 150 to 500mm f5 to 6.7 Di3 VCVXD lens that has potentially got a announcement date of April 22nd. The reason why this has intrigued me is because, to be honest, lately I've been looking at getting an ultra telephoto lens, and this, depending on price, may be something that I might go for. It might be something that a few people will go for. Before I talk about that, I will give a few of the specifications that is on the website. They say 25 elements in 16 groups, minimum shooting distance of 0.6 meters at wide angle, which is obviously the distance that a subject will have to be at in order for you to be able to focus on them. So that's 0.6 meters at the wide angle, and what will be 150 millimeters, and 1.8 meters at telephoto end, which will be the 500 millimeters. Maximum shooting magnification of 1.3.1 wide angle and 1.3.7 at telephoto. A filter diameter 82 millimeters. The lens will weigh 1,725 grams, which to me sounds a little bit heavy, which is something I've kind of been keeping in mind and looking at such lenses. It also has a tripod mount that weighs 155 grams, or whether that's included in the 1,725 grams, I'm not entirely sure. But it is listed separately, so maybe not. That sounds like a potentially capable lens. Again, I've been looking at getting an ultra telephoto lens. I've been considering my options. One of the options that I've been two of the options that I've really been looking at is the Sony 200 to 600, or potentially the Sigma 100 to 400 millimeter lenses. Both Sony full frame for my Sony a7 III, and it's going to take me quite a while to save up to get either of those lenses if I go for one of those two. But this lens, this Tamron 150 to 500 millimeters, is potentially a viable option. I have used Tamron lenses before. I actually have the 28 to 75 f2.8 on this on my a7 III recording this video, and I've also actually used the Tamron 18 to 400 millimeter on my Canon 1200D. That is obviously a crop sensor camera, APS-C sensor. This, looking at the photos, and they look, and I know again this is a rumour website, so we'll have to wait another 10 days or so to see whether this lens is real and whether it does genuinely get announced. But this is price dependent, and I'm not going to go and have an estimate on the price, but I'll talk about price in a moment. So maybe I will, but certainly this lens could be an option for people to go for. Again, I have the Sony 28 to 75. That's the only Tamron lens I've used for Sony full frame, but people have been raving about the optics and the performance of Tamron lenses for Sony cameras for the past couple of years. Ones like the 17 to 28, and I think it's 28 to 200 millimeters. Which brings me to the next point in this, which is the focal length. Now, actually thinking about it, I think that Tamron have made a 150 to 600, I think it is, for Canon EF mounts. I'm pretty sure there's a Scottish lady on YouTube that I watched her videos lately, a lady called Meg Montague. She's a Scottish kind of hobbyist photographer like myself. She enjoys doing, I think she most exclusively does kind of wildlife. I don't think she's put up a video lately because obviously all of this that's going on, but I'm sure that she uses a Canon camera. I'm pretty sure it's a 150 to 600 millimeters. I do know that Tamron is obviously owned in part by Sony. I believe it's something like, even just rough estimate of like something like 12.8% or something like that. It's around about 12-13%. And I do believe from what I've heard previous about when it comes to Tamron lens releases and announcements, that they do have a kind of informal or formal agreement with Sony not to actually mimic exactly some of the focal lens that Sony put out. So for instance, another lens that I bought quite cheaply quite a while ago now. Sony have the 24 to 240 millimeter, and obviously Tamron released a 28 to 200 millimeter. So perhaps that's part of it why it's 150 to 500 and not 200 to 600, not direct competition with Sony. Again, that's one of the lenses that I've been looking up. Some people have raved about that lens as well, the 2 to 600. And so this kind of sits in the middle of the two options that I've been really looking at, the Sony 200 to 600 millimeter, or another one that I've been looking at is the Sigma 100 to 400, because it's slightly cheaper than the around about £2,000 price point of Sony's own 100 to 400, which I believe is at least a G lens. Obviously, Sony have their G Master, which is their top level, top quality lenses. They have the G lens, and then basically everything else underneath that. With having to save up even to get into the point of buying one of these telephoto lenses, which is going to take a few months, it will be good. Hopefully, there is no guarantee right now that come April 22nd, camera reviewers, lens reviewers will have that lens in their hands. We may have to wait a while for that lens to make it into their hands, so they wait until they have time to review this lens. Some lenses that when they get announced, camera reviewers already have pre-production models and they can give us their estimate of how good the actual lens is, how it performs, what the photos that you take with it will turn out to look like. And others times we get the lens or camera announcements, and then it takes a while reviewers actually go out and do the business of reviewing and handling and taking photos with these lenses. So I think it sits quite in the middle of it. So like I said, 150 to 500 millimeters. It's not quite 100 to 400, but then it's not quite 200 to 600 either. So it's kind of sitting in the middle, which again, I firmly believe that Tamron do have that agreement with Sony to not exactly mimic or replicate. Even I would probably should say replicate instead of mimic. They have the agreement not to replicate some of Sony's focal length. So it sounds like a good idea. It sounds like potentially a decent lens. Again, price point, Tamron's 100 to 400 is hovering about the £2,000 mark. Looking at the Sony 200 to 600 currently in the UK, that is sitting around about 1,600, so not too far off the same price for those two lenses. I would estimate maybe, especially looking at the prices of like the 28 to 75 f2.8, maybe about 1,000, just a little bit more maybe the price of this lens, maybe 1,000, 1,100. It could be a possible solution. It could be something that I go for, depending on when this lens come out, when it gets into the hands of people who are more in the know and qualified to review the lens. But it certainly sounds like Tamron, with these lenses that they've released for the Sony mount, they've gotten good reviews. They've tried to keep the price point of them down and can be a more affordable third party option. So we'll have to wait and see, but certainly this first impression, the lens sounds like it's a very plausible option for those looking for an ultra telephoto lens for birds, wildlife, sports, whatever you want to use it for. It certainly sounds like it's a potential option for those who, like myself, amateurs, hobbyists, who may not have obviously the money to invest in high class Sony glass. They may want to invest in something like this.